Yo, what up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now, this video is going to be a little bit unorthodox. Normally, after a fight like this, I would just do the undercard fights, briefly talk about them, and then talk about the main event. And that's what I had every intention of doing until I watched Timothy Bradley versus Ruslan Provodnikov. I had a good time with the Jesse Vargas versus Lucky Boy, the Nigerian, and I thought that was good. I was like, okay, this is a pretty solid card. And then I watched Timothy Bradley versus Ruslan Provodnikov, and it topped it like dramatically, and it just made Jesse Vargas versus Lucky Boy a distant memory. Like I immediately damn near forgot about that fight because I was so enthralled with Timothy Bradley fight. Now I gotta say this because I'm gonna get all kinds of comments. Some of you guys are fucking idiots, and I know you're gonna leave the type of comments that fucking idiots leave. You got to give this man Timothy Bradley props. I don't care what anybody says. This dude has heart. He was fighting like a Mexican, and I'm not trying to stereotype, but it's a it's a boxing tall tale that just Mexicans brawl and they fight with heart. So that's why I use that comparison. This dude is fighting with heart, the will to win, determination, triumph, all that, and he has a chin because he was taking some vicious shots, and to the point where I was like, damn, he's about to get knocked out. He's really about to get knocked out. And then he would go to the rounds, and I mean, this was the type of fight that anything could happen at any given moment. Um, to me, this was more exciting than Sergio Martinez versus Chavez Jr. just because for 11 and a half rounds, Sergio Martinez was dominating, and I didn't even expect anything. And then in the 12th round, he got caught, and you're like, will he make it? Can he survive? You know what I mean? So that's what made that even exciting. However, the same feeling that I got when I watched Sergio Martinez versus Chavez Jr., I had from round one all the way to the final bell at round 12. That's how intense it was. Edge of your seat entertainment. Again, some of you guys are going to be idiots, I'm sure, on boxing forums, YouTube videos, and comments. You're going to say, oh, Timothy Bradley, he lost that fight. Probably Pacquiao fans, people still salty that he stripped the title off of Pacquiao. Um, but like I said, my hats go off to Ruslan Provodnikov. That was my first time really watching one of his fights live. Props, hats go off to Timothy Bradley. I mean, he showed tremendous heart. He showed a chin. He showed that he's in his position for a fluke. Now to break down the fight, um, it's so I have so many things. I was trying to normally when I do a fight I do like have the little scorecard app or I put notes in my iPhone, and I didn't even do it. I didn't even want to bother. I felt like that was gonna potentially cost me to miss something because I was just involved in the fight. My breakdown of the fight: Ruslan Provodnikov is a tough Russian opponent. I mean, he himself has a chin, and he throws with bad intentions. He was a lot slower, less slick than Timothy Bradley, but it's his power that made him really deadly because he hurt Timothy Bradley early, and I don't know if Timothy Bradley ever recovered because at the end of the fight, the post-fight, Max Kellerman's talking to Timothy Bradley, and he still sounded dazed. He sounded like um, he said he was still dizzy, and I mean, he looked worse in this fight than he did in the whole Pacquiao fight. So that goes to show you a lot. Um, as far as Timothy Bradley, he did some things in my opinion that were gutsy, ballsy, and he made his night harder than he had to. After the Pacquiao getting death threats, they even did a little backstory on HBO about how he was getting death threats and he's by the beach with seagulls and saying, yeah, it was a hard time for me, the 9 month layoff, 10 month layoff, and he was getting death threats. And he said he basically, if he lost to Manny Pacquiao, he seems like he would be in a better position. But he was blackballed in the boxing world from the boxing community or whoever, people like Jim Lampley, for beating Pacquiao because they thought it was undeserved. So he's on the comeback trail. Um, it was a ballsy move, and I don't think he should have came out how he did. But again, I think based on the circumstances, he felt he had something to prove. He came out with like a chip on his shoulder. I mean, he's throwing like he's always been known as a light puncher, but he came out there like he was Ruslan Provodnikov, and like he was just Lucas Matisse and somebody with lead for hands, and he's trying to fight that type of fight. Like it almost seemed like he felt he has something to prove to fans because a lot of people doubted that he beat Pacquiao. So I thought that wasn't a good look, especially if you've been on a 9-10 month layoff. Any fighter could be ring rusty, and you don't want to come out with brawn over brains. You want to come out brains over brawn. And I think that's the biggest mistake because he paid for it early. He was rocked in the first 2 rounds. Definitely gave Ruslan Provodnikov those rounds. Then it looked like he adjusted his game plan and started to fight smart. He used a lot of lateral movement. He was doing something beautifully, throwing that jab out there, working the body, and that's what we needed more of. Similar to the Sergio, it really reminds me of the Sergio Martinez versus Chavez Jr. You got somebody who's a lot more stationary, who has to set up their punches more, and they're looking for these big shots to be game changers. That's what Chavez Jr. was doing, and pretty much that's what Ruslan Provodnikov was doing. Provodnikov threw very little body shots. He didn't work the body. He didn't invest in the body, which is, in my opinion, and I learned this from Roy Jones Jr. way back when, he said, you can recover from a headshot, but if you go to the body, it's lights out. And that's true. I think if Ruslan Provodnikov, maybe if he was with a Virgil Hunter or maybe a Robert Garcia or just a different trainer, I'm not trying to blame it on Freddie Roach, but if he was with someone who would train him on some more of the fundamentals, in my opinion, like work the body, don't just headhunt, I think he might have knocked Timothy Bradley out because Timothy Bradley was quasi like recovering from the headshots. But if he was working the body too, he's gonna drop his hands, and his right was landing at will. He was throwing this one punch with his right hand, and he was just connecting, and that was like the devastating game changer. But his arsenal was pretty basic in terms of Ruslan Provodnikov, but he just had that type of power. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, this is a guy that came up from 140 to 147." A lot of people said this in the Paulie Malignaggi versus Pablo Cesar Cano fight, but you got to put it in perspective. A lot of times these fighters kill themselves, like Brandon Rios or whoever, to make weight. Adrian Broner, they go through great lengths to try to make weight. So when they come up to a different weight, like when they're moving up, it's a move up from the division they were previously fighting to, but it might be a better situation for their frame. I think that's why Josecito enjoyed 147. He said he felt good when he fought Victor Ortiz. That's when he upset the world. And he went up to 154, which was biting off a little bit too much to face Canelo. But now he's fighting at 147 again, instead of going back to 140, and he's a career 140 pounder. But Josecito, if you look at his frame, he's pretty tall for the division, maybe like 5'8" to 5'10 and a half. I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but it's a better look. So I think the same thing could probably be said for Ruslan Provodnikov. He might have been going through greater lengths to make 140, and he got at 147 and put the weight on in a good fashion, and it might be a better weight for him. But again, Ruslan Provodnikov was dangerous from rounds 1 through 12 just because he's a big puncher and he has a chin himself, and he was just coming relentlessly at Timothy Bradley. I mean, Timothy Bradley, I think it said he threw 1,000 punches. I mean, he was doing everything. He was mixing up his punches, and he had to do a lot just to keep this guy off him. We all know Timothy Bradley's not the hardest puncher, but again, terrific fight. I'm pleased with the scorecards. I definitely think Timothy Bradley won, and he won realistically because of what he did from rounds 7 through 10, 7 through 11. That's when he really kicked it up a notch, and Ruslan Provodnikov didn't do much during those rounds. Freddie Roach was even considering stopping the fight. So for those of you, before you get on, start saying stupid shit like, oh, Ruslan was killing him and he should have won, you have to remember Ruslan's corner was considering stopping the fight during that time frame because he was taking headshot, and he wasn't doing anything, wasn't really responding. He wasn't showing that he was game. So in a fight like this, you can't rely on what you did in the first 2 rounds in a 12-round fight and desperation rounds 11 to 12. I mean, Freddie Roach himself said, you got to knock this guy out. You can't let it go to the scorecard. You got to I mean, so obviously he had to, desperate times call for desperate measures. So in rounds 11 and 12, namely 12 because he knocked Timothy Bradley down, and Timothy Bradley had to take a knee in 12. Um, he had to do that. You know what I mean? He had to come at him like a bull in a china shop. That's the only way he was going to win, is unless he pressured him and really showed that he's hurting this guy. And he got very close in the 12th round. So it was definitely a nail biter, a great fight. You never knew what was going to happen. Um, Again, I think the worst part for Timothy Bradley is he just throughout the fight he was trying to fight it less sensibly. And I think Joel Diaz was having a conflict and he threatened to stop the fight because Bradley wasn't listening. But for whatever reason, Bradley came out with this mindset that I have something to prove to the world, and he won. So I guess he mission accomplished. But I don't think that was smart on his behalf. He definitely took risk, and in the end, it paid off. But it could have went the opposite way. It was very close to coming the opposite way. Um, had he not been able to hold on. But again, this dude has heart. He has chin. Um, Props to Ruslan Provodnikov. I definitely would watch him. I like some of these other fighters from overseas. Gavin Reese showed me a lot. I would definitely watch a Gavin Reese in the Adrian Broner fight. Ruslan Provodnikov, hadn't seen much of him. I would definitely watch him again. I think he could be a threat for anybody that isn't going to do what Timothy Bradley is capable of doing, outworking and having that work volume of punches, using that type of lateral movement, having a good defense, having a chin. I mean, he's going to be a problem for anyone. I'd really like to see Ruslan Provodnikov faced against like someone like Jesus Soto Caras, Marcos Maidana. I think those could be potential all-out world wars. Um, Maybe even Selçuk Aydin. I would like to see Ruslan fight any of those guys. I think he definitely showed he can compete at a high level by going 12 rounds. And Timothy Bradley did a lot of great things in the fight when he did make his adjustments. He was throwing that jab out there, and he was throwing some excellent body punches, and just his footwork was great. So terrific fight. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And Timothy Bradley, Desert Storm, comes out unanimous decision victory. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Like I said, you got to give props to both fighters because they really did what they were supposed to do. But my last take is, again, I just think Bradley fought a gutsy, semi-crazy fight by trying to go toe-to-toe and scrap with somebody who's far more devastating of a puncher. Instead of using his natural innate boxing ability, he could have made it a way easier night. So, especially coming off of a 10-month layoff. But again, terrific fight. He did the fight that he felt was necessary. He still came out victorious, even though he was dizzy after. And like I said, that's all I can say. Action fight. I can't wait. I recorded it. I'm definitely going to watch it again. And let me know what you guys thought of the fight. Timothy Bradley, Ruslan Provodnikov. Freddie Roach continues his losing streak. And that's basically it. Let me know what you think. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.